So let's just jump right into January, our first tag of our Time to Flourish series. So as you've all seen how beautiful and sparkly that is, first what you want to do is grab our wonderful January cut apart sheet. And like I was showing you earlier, there are so many little elements in there that you could use for dozens of projects, no joke. So the first things first, we are going to be cutting out a few things, a few key elements. So down here at the bottom, you're going to see you have two little rectangle tags. You have one that has some open journaling space. You just want to cut out that whole rectangle and do the same with the one right next to it with the wording on it that starts with, I wonder if the snow. So start with cutting those two out. Then from there, you're going to go up to the top and you're going to cut out two of these postage stamps. Just cut those out, and you're going to cut those out separately. And just as we're doing this, just set these aside because we're going to be pulling from them later. And let me do that while we're at it, but I'm going to point out the other remaining ones, and so you can kind of be on doing it as well. The January here we're going to be cutting out. Also, we're going to be cutting out over on the left side some of the border, the winter wishes, and I'll give you the size on that one but everything else you're just going to want to cut around the box. So it's super easy. You don't need to have any measurements. So the last pieces on the front side of the cut apart is we're going to be cutting out this border up here, and we want to cut up 3 7/8. And just so what you're going to do is you're just going to trim with the red included, but we're going to separate those. Just cut up to the 3 7/8 mark. Okay, so now that we've cut everything out on our front of the cut apart sheet, you want to turn it over, and we're going to use some of this blue ditzy paper for part of our tag. It's going to be the base. So you want to cut out a 3 3/4 square, and you can just select that from wherever, just depending on if there's a particular image on the reverse side that you want to keep. So just cut out a 3 3/4 square and put that off to the side. From here, we're going to go in, and this is our Time to Flourish January Flourish page. And so with each month, we've taken and we've put together a page that is a beautiful assortment of different florals. We've got some nice old, wording in there, pine cones, so you still have that January feel. We've got some different elements there. This is a great page. On the back, it's just a combination of different things like Happy New Year, January, winter wishes, different little sentiments that you can go in and you can cut those up and use those just no problem at your leisure. So the first thing we are going to be cutting out from here is we're going to be cutting out a flower that we're going to use. We're going to do fussy cutting, and fussy cutting is such a huge part of the way that Graphic 45 works, because a lot of people will look at this paper and they'll say, oh, it's so beautiful, but I just don't want to cut into it. But this is why we're here. We're here to show you that don't be afraid, because the paper, you can do so many things with it and create your own embellishments and layer and whatnot. So what I like to do is identify the item I would like. And so I want just that flower, just none of the leaves or anything. So I'm just going to go in and cut kind of a wide circle around it. So that's one thing about fussy cutting that I've seen a lot of folks do, where they try to fussy cut with the whole 12 by 12 sheet in their hand, and that just makes it so much harder. So if you go in and you just select that smaller, you have the smaller piece, so you're easier to work with. So you're going to take your scissors, and then you're going to kind of just work the paper around your scissors. And so it's just a lot easier when you just have this little amount of paper and you're working your paper around the scissors. And some you can go in and go into the petals a little bit more, so you have a little bit more dimension. And the fun thing is with these, then you can kind of play with them and get dimension after you are done cutting it out by just breaking down the fibers of the paper. And that's a lot of fun. And it's amazing what you can really create. So if you wanted to add multiple elements, you could continue to cut smaller ones and kind of build up on that, and that could really be a really pretty kind of assortment. So if you could always go bigger and do layering, so that's always something to consider as well. So we don't want to, you have this whole sheet to use for later, except we just have to cut a little piece off on the reverse side of that's 2 1/4 by 3 3/4, because we're going to create a little tag. So just take one of the sides that you don't necessarily like the image on the other side, and just hurry and cut that 2 1/4 by 3 3/4. And again, look at all of those great sentiments to use. There's even cute little images of a bird and a nest, and I mean, this page in itself you could use for so many different things. Once you've cut that brown piece down, you're going to just take the corners and you're going to just notch them. Just cut off just a little bit of the corner, and we've created a little tag for layering. All right, so now that we have our tag, all of the pieces ready to go, what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of our regular ivory tags, and these come in craft black as well, and we're going to be working with all of our tags and throughout the classes, and you're going to see all of the fun things that you can do with these. So to start out, what we're going to do is we're going to take our blue paper that we cut from the cut apart page, and you're going to put your adhesive on it. And you're just going to take that, and then on the back side of the blue pattern, because we want the blue to be faced up towards us, you're just going to put some adhesive on that, and that's your preference on what you want to use. Rollers are usually the fastest and work just as well. And then you're just going to want to center that kind of towards the top on the front of your card. And if you notice the grommet on the tag, you want to make sure that the grommet is on the outy, nice finished side and not on the unfinished side. So just make sure when you start gluing that you have the pretty side up. And if you have any excess, you can just go around and trim that off. But it should be pretty right on. From there, we're going to take our little Let It Snow, and we're going to just put that on the top of that. Just right above it. Makes me think of like snowmen and all of those fun things that you see kids out doing when they get a snow day from school, for the lucky ones that do. So then you're going to take the other bottom border that we cut, the Winter Wishes, and you're going to just put that down on the bottom. And if it's hanging off at all, you can either trim the edges or, I like to trim the edges, so we're going to do that. I think it looks more finished that way. All right. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to take our brown paper with all of the verbiage and sentiments on there, and if you have a crocodile or hole punch, we're just going to punch a hole in the center of the top of it so we're creating a tag. So we've done that. And then we have this fun little red and white twine. And you can use anything that matches that you have in your house or whatnot. But these twines are a lot of fun to work with too. And I feel like January still has kind of that holiday feeling, so it kind of goes perfectly with that. So I'm just going to run that through and trim down those edges on that. All right. So we're just going to layer these right now and just kind of get everything in position before we glue it down. And then this smaller piece that we cut out with I wonder if it will snow is going to get layered just kind of in the center, hanging off on that. And then that pretty flower that we fussy cut out, like I said, kind of play and break down the fibers a little bit. And that's going to get positioned underneath that. So let's first put our flower down. And you can use some 3D adhesive here if you wanted to add that dimension, but I don't think it needs it. And that just gets positioned maybe 1/8 of an inch over from the side and 1/8 of an inch up from that brown border. And that rose gets tucked under there. So, okay, so before we put the adhesive on, we're gonna just kind of wrap it around and make sure we have this balanced. And so it's not uneven. So we're gonna just fold that around, make sure eyeball that looks pretty good. And one example, what you can do if you want this to be more three-dimensional, you can actually not glue down the tabs and keep this open so that these could be more interactive, and then you could write sentiments, put photos on them and whatnot. So that's definitely an option. What I'm going to do here is I'm not going to glue down the entire front of the January because I want to have a little bit of some dimension there. So we're just going to glue down these back tabs. So once you've put that adhesive on there, and you kind of did the gentle fold, then just eyeball that and get that on there centered. And so then you have that kind of little bounce to it, which is a lot of fun. And then you could add in more things. If that was a gift, you could put a gift card in there. And then we have, for the back, we have a piece of blue cardstock that we are just gonna put on the back there. And so we just need to put some adhesive on that. Right. Just to cover up the back side, and then it gives you the opportunity to, you could put a photo, use it as a photo mat, you put a sentiment, personal note. So with this, you see, this already could make a wonderful tag, but what we can do is go in and cut around the edges and do the fussy cutting so we have our own little cute tag that has that fun shape. So super easy. And then you just want to take your hole punch, just punch that down, make sure you've got it centered. Perfect. Got our little tag. And I want to add some 3D adhesive here. So now that we have our 3D adhesive on there, we're going to come in and we're going to just position our tag on there on a fun angle to add a little interest. If you want to see the whole January, kind of want to position it a little, just like so. And then what I've done is I've selected just some fun glittery ribbon just to attach to the top. And you can tie that through, but I feel like it gives it a much more finished kind of look if you just have the bow tied and then you glue that on there with a nice liquid glue. So we're just gonna hurry and dab that on there. Let that sit there for a minute to dry. That's the nice fun sparkles. And then we have our postage stamps to add. Just put a little adhesive on those. Have those kind of overhanging one another, kind of like that. Actually move this pine cone down a little bit more. So the technique is super easy, and there's a lot of ways to do this and kind of do it all along the way, but this is kind of the way to go if you're running out of time. So if you just have a nice little ivory or white paint, And so you just kind of get it in there, and you can get kind of messy about it. It's up to you, but just get it on the edges. And we just did a little bit there, so we can come back and do some more. But then take a light fine glitter and kind of just shimmer that over the top of that. And so where the wet paint is, it should pick it up, so we have some highlights going on in different places on the card. And here is the January Time to Flourish tag, the first of 12, and the next 11 are just as fabulous.